like your perspective. Like you're very self-aware and you are a little bit analytical about things. Do you feel like that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that you say that because sometimes I feel that and then other times I feel like a chicken with my head cut off being like, what am I doing?
We were talking before we started rolling that about how you like to play somebody else, right? It's easy for you. And I was saying that would feel really hard for me. Similarly, it's harder to do things for me in front of people I know than in front of people I don't know, I think.
Definitely.
Right?
Yes. The most nervous I've ever been in my life was always when I was doing theater and I knew my family was in the audience. It's still, even when I was on Broadway doing the Carole King musical and I knew my mother was in the audience, I was more nervous than I've ever been for anything else.
That's so interesting. I wonder why that is.
know.
I guess you feel, I don't know. I mean, as a therapist, I should know what the answer to that is, but I don't think I do.
I mean, I have some ideas. I mean, the irony is, of course, that I know she's going to love it and be moved by my performance regardless because she's my mom. But I don't know.
What about when you'd be on Broadway and you would know that there were people, like, would they tell you ahead of time, not your family, but other people would be in the crowd?
Yeah.
Like, oh, guess what? So-and-so is in the audience tonight?
Sometimes the one time they didn't was when, because I was doing the Carole King musical, Beautiful, they did not tell me when Carole was in the audience, but no one had a poker face. And I figured it out anyway, because everyone was acting so strange.
So everybody knew?
Everyone knew that Carole was coming. Everyone was acting so strange. And I was like, she's here. She's here. And then I saw her. And coincidentally, she came the night my mom did. So I was already nervous, probably more nervous for my mom. I was already nervous because I knew my mom was in the audience. And then they ended up sitting across the aisle from each other.
Oh, that's so weird. Did they meet?
Yeah.
That was cool, I guess.
It was so cool, such a full circle moment, because part of the reason that I love Carole King and wanted to do the show in the first place was because my mom played Carole for me as a child. It was like a soundtrack to my childhood was Linda Ronstadt, Joni Mitchell, Carole King, and then they were there the same night.
That's really cool.
Yeah, it was pretty magical.
That was a moment where you like, I need to freeze this moment forever?
Yes.
And did you get some good photos out of it?
Yes. I mean, my mom is petrified.
You can see it in her face.
Yeah. She's the pictures are very sweet.
I love that. That's exactly because that shows the emotion. So that's better than just a pose picture where everybody looks perfect.
Yeah.
So Broadway. Okay. So do you feel like you want to go back to Broadway at some
Always.
point?
Stage is my first love. I would love to be back on stage. It's definitely a harder schedule, in my opinion. It's I don't know if I'm the only one that feels that way, but 8 shows a week, it's just a different set of muscles.
Yeah.
And I found it, going back to theater, having done film and television for a decade, I was kind of struck by, oh yeah, this is really difficult.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's like, I don't think you're alone in that. I think I've heard that from people before. It's grueling.
Grueling.
I mean, and then to do it for a while, and then also your whole rhythm is off, right? Because you're working nights, and then if you have family, it would be even harder.
Yep. And what I found the hardest was that the entire day leading up to the show is the elephant in the room for your entire day. And especially if you're singing, like I did for Beautiful, I sang the entire show. You're worried about your voice the whole time and thinking about that. You don't get to go out to dinner. It's just a tough schedule.
And you have to really protect it, right? You have to watch what you can't get sick, I guess.
No.
That's just outlawed.
You can't. And if you do, there are methods for making sure that you go on stage and the show goes on.
What?
Steroids, medicine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Because people would be really disappointed if they went to see the show and you weren't
Especially, I only had a 2-month run. So calling out, if you're in the show for longer periods of time, like my husband was on Broadway last year, and he was able to call out and like his understudy would go on, but I was not in that position.
Yeah, it's funny because my son and I were just seeing, when we were in New York last month, we just went to see Merrily We Roll Along.
Oh, I can't wait to see that. I love that show.
I hope you're seeing it soon because it's closing in July.
Oh, I don't know if I'm going to get to, but I love that show.
It was so good.
I'm sure.
And, you know, Daniel Radcliffe is in it, and I am forgetting the
Lindsay Mendez and John Groff.
Yes.
Yeah.
They're all so good. And like John Groff is amazing. And Lindsay is amazing. I don't know if you know them. Do you know them personally?
I have met Lindsay before, and her voice is out of control. She is an incredible singer.
They're so good. And the show was great. And I remember thinking when we sat down, like, it would be kind of weird for a lot of people. Because, you know, a lot of people were in the audience, especially thinking, oh, we're going to see Harry Potter. So, like, imagine the disappointment if Harry Potter wasn't there. Like, that would be a little bit weird. But the show is great, too. I'm surprised that more people aren't talking about the show. It's odd. It's so good. But anyway, it's closing in July. Maybe you can scoot over there. And
I hope so. There's a lot of stuff I want to see right now.
Uh-huh. Like what?
I want to see Stereophonic. I want to see my friend Grant Gustin in Water for Elephants. I want to see Enemy of the People. I love Ibsen. And I think Jeremy Strong's really talented. There's a lot. It's a good season for Broadway. I feel like it's back.
No, wait, Enemy of the People, that's with Jeremy Strong. Is that the one with Michael Imperioli, too?
Yes.
Yeah. So Michael's been on my show a bunch of times.
Oh, really?
Yes. He was like one of my, we even did a live show when I first started doing them with an audience. He was
fun.
the one like, we should do it on a stage. I'm like, okay, let's do it. But yes, great. I would like to see that one, too.
Yeah.
So you know a lot of people on Broadway. Do you hang out with, like, are these your circles of actors, Broadway actors? Who's in your circle?
Who's in my circle? Well, right now, my circle is quite small because I have a little one. And I think when you have small children, your world just kind of innately gets like this. So I spend most of my time with an almost 4-year-old. And it's the best. And it's all the things. It's hard. It's wonderful. It's profound. And my husband. But that's a funny question because I spent my 20s on shows that were really concentrated and took a lot of time. I was on broadcast television. We were doing 2022 Glee and Supergirl.
And Supergirl, right.
And we were doing 22 episodes a season. That's 10 months of your year. And Supergirl was up in Vancouver. So it was a really concentrated like almost bubble that we were in up there for all of the shows on the Arrowverse. And it was really demanding. The job was really demanding for me. And so most of my time was spent on set. So my circle up there was that cast and those people and that crew. And it was 6 years of my life, Supergirl was. So when I was done and I moved back to LA, I almost had to, in essence, like build up a new community because I'd spent so much time out of the country and working so much that I hadn't really been able to cultivate new friendships. And I have, old friends from childhood that are like my true blue. But yeah.
So it's hard to cultivate a new community.
Yeah.
At any
especially
age.
in Los Angeles. It's a really hard
Do you think
city.
It's harder in LA?
I think so. Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Everyone's so it's a city that's easy to be isolated in because we're driving everywhere. There's a lot of traffic, so getting anywhere is really difficult. Like if I have a friend that's on the west side, more often than not, I'm never gonna see them.
Yes.
You know,
it's the fact.
Like I'm on the east side, I can't drive an hour and a half to go to dinner.
Right.
If I do, I really love you.
Right. That's really a sign that our friendship is good.
Yes.
Right? Because I'm going both ways, too.
Yeah, totally.
And there's at least one of those ways is going to be full traffic.
Yes.
At like 10 different points.
Yes. Throughout the day.
Yes.
Even when there shouldn't be traffic.
Right.
So just logistically, it's harder to maintain the friendships and the community. And also, this is a city that I feel like you find people in the pockets or like in unexpected ways. I don't know if that was you said you recently moved here?
Yeah, I just moved last summer, so I've been here less than a year.
Oh, great. And
but
how
I've
are you
been coming
finding it?
here here and there for years to tape my show. So like I was based in New York. My show was taping there. And then I'd come to LA maybe 3 or 4 times a year for a week at a time. I'd interview a bunch of people and then that was that. So it's not like I wasn't here before, but I think I have the opposite experience of a lot of people. I find it easier here to connect with people. It's so strange. I almost can't explain it, but maybe it's because of I wanted to be here so much. I was really ready because so much goes on in terms of people are creating things all the time here.
Yeah.
People are passionate about things. There's a lot of projects in the works. And so the weather is so nice. So people are outside a lot. Like people are happy to sit on the sidewalk at a cafe and have a cup of coffee. Like that's my thing too. So I think I initiate a lot of it. So I'm like, oh, let's get coffee. I'm going to be on your side of town. Or do you want to meet in the middle? And so people are, like, it's been good for me.
That's good.
So I do like that, but I do totally understand what you're saying. But for me, I just feel like I guess I'm maybe attempting more. I'm putting myself out there a little bit more than I used to.
Yeah, and I think that's the key in this city. And I think that took me a long time to learn. Was that you really have to be the one to open the doors and to like initiate the connections.
Totally. And so in life, you have to be the one.
Yes.
I really feel like that applies to everything.
Everything.
And it's like when you realize it, it can shift a lot of things.
Yep. Agreed.
Right. And I think, like, believe me, I would love it if everybody was constantly like, oh, Kara, let's go, whatever. Let's go do this. Let's go do that. But like sometimes, yes. But a lot of the times I am the initiator and everybody's happy to go along and do it. But I've kind of slipped into that role. But that's okay because that makes things happen. So, yeah, it is interesting. It's funny. I just said my name. And I was going to say to you in the beginning, by the way, I'm Kara. Because so are you, in a way.
I was,
but
for a long time.
But it was pronounced different.
Kara. Yes. You don't have the Zor-El.
Right. So I had John Cryer was on my show.
I love him.
He's
I adore
great.
him.
He was on recently. And I remember him asking me, okay, how do you pronounce your name? Because it was very specific. People would get really upset.
Oh, yeah. People would get really upset.
They would get really upset. If what? If somebody, people, who would get upset? Now I'm confusing myself. So it was Kara, right?
Kara is Supergirl, yes.
Yes.
Kara Danvers, Kara Zor-El. And we actually had, I can't remember if it was one of our directors or one of our director of photography, one of our cinematographers that would always say Kara. It was our director. I don't want to call him out by name, and he's a dear friend of mine, but this director that directed a lot of episodes of Supergirl would always say Kara. We'd always be like, you've done, how many episodes of this show have you done? You have to know how to pronounce it by now.
I guess we all have blind spots, right? There are certain things that we just cannot change about whatever we perceive.
Yeah, you had some block in here
that's so funny. So you were doing Supergirl for 6 years.
Yes.
That's all, and 10 months a year, you said?
Yeah. A lot, and sometimes more because we did crossover episodes.
Oh, right, because there were so many different shows.
Yeah.
And then, people do like to believe that casts are actually friends in real life. So it's probably going to make people giddy to know that, oh, that was your circle and you were friendly with people. Like, so you were friends during the year with everybody, I guess, right, while you were there.
Yes. And in a way, it ends up, especially when you're doing a show for that long, it really starts to feel familial and you're around each other more often than you are, a lot of times, than your families. So, I mean, that's not to say that it was always perfect. Like, buttons were pressed, but that's just being human.
Well, that's also families.
Exactly. And it was very familial. And, those people are going to be in my life forever, like Kyler and David married my husband and I, David Harewood. Oh. So it is very singular, that experience that you go through with a cast.
That's right. And you met your husband on the show, right?
I did.
So, okay, what was that like?
It was, it was wonderful. In short.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty cool.
So you kind of sensed it? What, you reached something?
I had heard about him I don't know if I've ever told this story, but I'd heard about him for years and years and years because he had done a tour of Spring Awakening with a childhood friend of mine. And someone very close to me, when they were doing that tour long time ago, was like, oh, I think you guys would get along. So I had known he had been in my awareness for a long, long, long time before I'd even started a career. So I knew about him, and then, I had a feeling the second I met him.
Oh, so it was a she?
Mm-hmm.
She was right.
Yes.
I wonder what she knew about what she was seeing that you.
Yeah, I wonder. I've never asked her.
Huh. Yeah, I'd be curious. She had some sort of a sense of you two would get along.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you met him and you were like, oh, she was right. Like,
yeah. I mean, immediately we bonded over our love of musical theater, and we have a lot of similarities. We're very similar.
And were you the only two with the musical theater background on the show?
I think so. No, we had Jeremy Jordan with us as well, and he's Mr. Broadway.
So did he know you before? Like, did he know you from Glee?
Jeremy or Chris?
Chris.
Yes, and that's another thing. We kind of had a narrow missed chance before we met on Supergirl. He was testing for a role on Glee the same season that I was, so we were like in the same building, testing for different roles to try to get on Glee. I got the job, he didn't, and he ended up doing different things and being on Vampire Diaries. But we had all these like narrow missed connections until I like to think it was the perfect moment for us to meet.
Yeah. Everything was aligned. The stars aligned. But you were kind of destined anyway, it seems like.
It feels like it.
Right.
I mean, I kind of knew on a molecular level when I met him that it was.
You did?
Yeah.
So right away?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Again, it's this thing that you can't quite put your finger on, but you just know. Mm-hmm. Which I think a lot of life is like that.
Yeah, I think so too.
Or if you're kind of an intuitive.
If you're open to it.
Yes, if you're open to it. So I like your perspective. Like, you're very self-aware and you are a little bit analytical about things. Do you feel like that?
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that you say that, because sometimes I feel that, and then other times I feel like a chicken with my head cut off being like, what am I doing? But I like to think that I'm a Libra, and I like to think that I try to see both sides of everything, or all sides of everything. Sometimes that gets in my way because I can be really indecisive. But I think maybe that harbors some self-awareness.
Yeah.
And kind of just trying to see all perspectives.
Yeah, I think that's a gift, honestly. It's a skill also that you have probably honed over the years. Maybe you've gotten better at it. But I do think it's a good thing to go through life with. Do you feel like that?
Yeah. I think it's served me well in certain situations, definitely.
Not all.
Not all. No. But I think you know what I'll say is I think I do have something that I'm proud of in myself in this regard, is that I feel like I have faith in the process of things, and faith that, like, if you are open to life showing you what you need, or teaching you, or like harnessing opportunities in a way that you will grow, things will work out. I think I'm an optimist in that way.
Yes, definitely. That's a positive thing. I'm an optimist as well. And I do think that maybe we're born with it a bit, but we can also nurture that in life. And you can kind of turn yourself in that direction as well.
Yeah, I think it can be a choice.
Yeah, I think because our minds are so complex as humans. It's like we can be really bad for ourselves at times, but we can also turn it around and be very good for ourselves. You know what I mean? I'm getting very like analytical and meta, but
no, I agree with you. I agree with you. And I think the moments that we are not so good for ourselves are the moments where there's something we need to learn.
Yeah. Interesting. Yes, definitely.
That's what I tell myself to get through it, at least.
But that helps. That helps. Like, one of the things that I like to do is if I get mad at myself for doing something wrong or whatever that I'm not happy with, I will tell myself as I'm going through it, okay, this did not go the way I wanted, but I'm going to learn from it. This is teaching me something. Like, I am learning. It's okay. For next time, I'm not going to A, B, or C. So it's like I consciously try to do that. And I think that helps also it helps you from sinking in that spot.
Yeah.
And drowning in that
and
spot.
wallowing.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yeah. And so like you have to lick your wounds here and there, but then it's nice to be able to decide that you're going to pick yourself up and move on.
Absolutely.
This is making me think of that video, the video that you shared, which was amazing, by the way, because I told you I was a therapist, so the mental health thing is really important for me. Is it okay if I ask you a little bit about the intimate partner violence?
Yes.
Okay, good. So you had an experience years ago. How long ago was it?
Now it was, like 10, 11 years ago.
Okay.
A long time ago.
And you found yourself in a relationship, and you thought it was a good relationship at first?
That's a complicated answer.
Oh, okay.
It was a period of massive change in my life and a very new situation that it was my introduction to Hollywood. I was brand new and never expected myself to be working in film and television. My original dream was Broadway, and so I was new to LA. I was brand new to Glee on this TV show, and I didn't know any which way of where I was, what I was doing. Everything was new. All the people I was meeting were new. And that's a really vulnerable position for a young person, especially a young woman, I think. And so this relationship kind of descended on me, and I always was a little wary.
Oh, so there was
that little voice was telling me, like, this is maybe not where you want to go.
So you did, but then you kind of ignored it.
Yeah, I think because I was lonely.
Yeah. So there are reasons why we do the things we do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. And even if it wasn't clear, and even if like now, years and years later, I still shake my head and I'm like, how did I end up in that situation? I think there's still. I'm not someone who's like everything happens for a reason always, but I tell myself that I think that there was that season of my life. I certainly wouldn't be the person that I am today if it hadn't happened to me.
I think also, and I don't mean to say like you need to go through something to benefit everybody else, but I feel like because you were vocal about it, so there's a video that you filmed yourself sharing your experience, like lots of details about it. It was so open and so moving and so generous of you to do it. You put it on, I saw it on Instagram, and you think you put it on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
And so anybody who would like to can see it, and I encourage everybody to watch it. You're about to say something. What?
No.
Oh, okay. I feel like that it was a gift to so many people who were probably either in situations like that, had already been, know somebody who is, maybe could end up in a situation like that later. And I just, like, it benefited so many people. If you didn't open up about it, it wouldn't.
That was definitely part of the reasoning for telling it in the first place. Frankly, it didn't even really have anything to do with him. It was that when I was in that situation, I wasn't seeing anything like that. I wasn't seeing anything that was giving me hope. Even in terms of like narrative stories about IPV and domestic violence. Oddly enough, when I was in the situation, I was like seeking out those kinds of stories because I didn't want to feel like I was the only one, because there was so much shame in that. And I wasn't finding it anywhere. And I also was not lost on me the fact that I was playing a superhero, playing the woman of steel, who is supposed to be the strongest woman on earth. And in my private life, I was living a nightmare and was really not safe. And that just to me exemplified that it could literally happen to anyone. And even women, because I was that person that was like, oh, if anyone ever did that to me, I'd be gone in a heartbeat. I was that person. But I saw someone that was in a lot of pain. Just so happened that they took their pain out on me. And while that's completely unacceptable, and I'm so grateful that I'm out of that situation. I still carry empathy, you know? That never goes away. For me, it hasn't.
Yeah.
Hurt people hurt people.
Yeah, it is true. A lot, unfortunately, is the way that it is. But right, and there are so many emotions involved. You're in a relationship with somebody who you care about, you think cares about you. He tells you he cares about you, and at the same time, he turns around and he's violent.
Right.
So it's like the messages that you're getting in your brain are all mixed up.
Yeah.
It's complicated.
Very. Very.
So what was it went on for how long?
A couple years.
Couple years. And this is while you were filming Supergirl.
Yes.
Uh-huh. And you didn't tell anybody?
No, and I suspect that people worried and had an idea, but I was very much keeping to myself about it.
How did you know that people might have suspected? Like, what were you observing?
I mean, there was evidence. You know, people were seeing things on my body that were concerning.
Yeah.
So that, I think I could just see when people would clock that. And, you know, another thing that I think a lot of people that are in relationships like that talk about is that you end up getting really good at being dishonest. And I could always clock when I could see people seeing when I was lying. Because I'm not a very good liar.
Yeah, even though you're an actor, right? You still, right, that's something totally different when you're acting.
Yes.
Okay. So then you got yourself out of it. So there's somebody who confronted you, right? A friend of yours?
Yeah.
And that gave you the strength to get out of the relationship, right?
Yeah, it was almost like I hadn't been allowing myself to think that it was possible. And I was, I think, very lucky that I was then in a situation where a lot of people in that situation it's not safe for them to leave. But at that certain point, I was in a different city. It was a little more safe for me to extricate myself. And yeah, this friend kind of was responsible for opening the floodgates.
Thank God for friends who are brave enough to
it was
say the
really
thing.
Brave. And she was very, very nervous.
She was. Because she was probably afraid of it could have gone any way.
Yeah, I could have rejected it and you know, completely disowned her.
Right.
Which I think happens.
Are you still friends today?
Yeah.
Of course. I mean, I figured, but okay, that's good. So shout out to her for doing that. And then how much later was it that you and Chris started to get involved?
I mean, it was not too much later. I was really lucky to have a very, very good therapist that I still see to this day.
For the good therapist.
Yeah, she's fantastic. So
why? What was it? What about her?
She just made me believe that my healing journey, that I wasn't broken. You know? That like, even though I had just had a really horrific experience, she kind of didn't allow me to wallow in it. And she acknowledged and validated the fact that what I had gone through was really terrible. But we just focused on the fact that I was a survivor, and we did a lot. I mean, she just really got me to a healthy place where I was open to other people.
I'm so glad
healthy
to hear
relationships.
It. Yeah, that's so great. So now look at you. You've grown from it. You've helped other people. You're in this great relationship now. I mean, I'm assuming it's a great relationship.
It's a wonderful relationship.
So what makes it a wonderful relationship?
Communication.
Okay.
Yeah, respect. Chris is a fantastic communicator. He is very in touch with his emotions and very open with me about his feelings and accepting of mine, even when we have disagreements. We just are kind of on the same page in that way.
Okay, so you're on the same page. Plus, you talk openly. So nobody's
about everything.
About everything. So you're always talking about all the stuff?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
We do not let ourselves get afraid of any subject. And that's something that in my healing journey I've had to really overcome, is the fear of saying something that's going to upset a partner. You know?
Okay. Yeah. Right. Because it's better. You're not doing the partner any favors by keeping it in.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's like you have to be able to see that.
Yeah.
Right. Because you're worried about you. I don't want to upset him, but it'd be worse for him not to know.
Right.
And for you to keep it inside.
Yeah.
Okay. That's another good thing. Yes. You have learned a lot. You are like constantly learning, it seems like.
Yeah.
And you want to do that your whole life.
Definitely.
That's the way to go and the way to grow. That sounded corny. I never said that before. It just worked out like that.
I liked the rhyming.
Thank you. But it's nice also, like, all these experiences do contribute to how you're able to raise your son also.
Absolutely.
It's all helpful for him to see because you're role models for him.
Try to be, yes.
Right. So, okay, so Chris was in a show, though, last year. So was he in New York and you were here?
No, we actually shot Girls on the Bus in New York as well. So the whole family
beautiful.
went to New York. Yeah.
Okay, wait. So how did that? Okay, that's a good topic. I do want to talk about that too. But so how was that then? You were lit at the same time?
We were very much ships passing in the night not a terribly long time. It was a couple months.
Okay.
Because he was doing 8 shows a week at night.
Right.
And I was shooting during the day, but luckily I had some days off. So we didn't not ever see each other.
Okay.
But
Plus you were the same home base.
yes.
So that's something. That's
we
worth
were always
something.
sleeping in the same bed.
Yeah. So you don't have to be constantly in each other's faces
No.
for a relationship to be like healthy. In fact, maybe quite the opposite is sometimes better. So that's all good in my opinion. So that worked out. Okay. So you were, how long did it take to film Girls on the Bus?
6 months.
6 months. Okay. And it was all in New York, even though you were on the road.
Those were all New York exteriors. Sometimes we were in Long Island or Westchester or a little further north.
Like Rockland County or something? Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's so interesting. Also, okay, a few words about it. So, I don't know the future of the show, but it's on HBO now, it's on Max now. Everybody can watch it. It's a great show. Things I love about it, a few things are, I love that it's about these friendships between women. So I know other people have said this to you before, but I'm going to say it anyway. I love the fact that there are so many new shows now that are focusing on these women as central characters, and they're each unique. It's not one type of character. It's like there are there are different generations, different perspectives, and you can see that they're all bonding. I love to see that as a woman who has friendships and relationships. To me, it's huge. Like that was the bigger draw than the politics of it all, because it covers politics journalists and political journalists.
Political journalism, yeah.
On the road.
Campaign reporting.
So anyway, that's just my thought on it. So I loved it.
Thank you.
Plus, it brought in a lot of interesting issues too. The abortion issue was very interesting to me because it wasn't the typical coverage of, oh my God, what am I going to do? It was like, okay, I've decided I'm going to get an abortion, but I'm in a state where it's illegal.
Yep.
So I have to get to another state where I can accept the pills in the mail.
Yes. The agony was not the fact that she had to do it. The agony was how. How am I going to do it in a post-Dobbs world when I'm on the road in these states that now all have different laws about a choice that I am making for my body? Yeah.
Yeah. So it was really cool to see that. Okay, I also noticed that, so you were posting pictures, all 4 of you, the cast members, were posting pictures with each other, and you were saying a lot of things on how great it was to film together. So, okay, was it real?
Yes. And I know you probably hear that a lot.
Well, I mean, I know people are kind of honest with me, I think, a lot about some shows are better than others in terms of how people get along.
Yes. Well, I think that it really comes from the top down, and it's part of the reason that I love working with Greg Berlanti, that he is such a warm-hearted, heart of gold soul, and that he kind of informs the environments that he creates. And I have really learned from him how to do that. In Supergirl, I really cut my teeth on how to be a leader on set, and it's really important to me, the atmosphere, that a work atmosphere.
Okay.
being safe, a safe space for people. And Girls on the Bus, I am being like 1,000% genuine when I say it was one of the most joyful work experiences I have had in my career.
Okay, I believe you.
Because we just all had a common goal. We all really cared about the subject matter. We were all artists that really wanted to excavate and tell the story in the best way possible. We all had fun. It was a really like lighthearted, lovely environment. And those three women are just dear, dear friends of mine. Like, we really lucked out and found some soul sisters in the show. And it was kind of that in life. You said that the four characters on the show, they're all from different walks of life and different generations. And that was us, and different experiences. And we were able to really just fall in love with each other kind of instantaneously.
Yeah. Sometimes again, it's that intuitive kind of thing again. Yeah. You just know, you hit it off. Like, there's something you guys like about each other. Yeah. And you see it, and it's great. It's amazing when that happens.
Amazing. We were so lucky, and we knew it every single day. We would just look around and be like, this is really great.
Yeah. That's good stuff. Yeah. So, all right, then the question, of course, is, have you stayed in touch since you stopped filming? Absolutely, yes. You have, all four of you.
We have a little group chat. I see Christina Elmore because we have kids around the same age. Natasha, Ben and I live 5 minutes away from each other. Carla's in New York, and we all kind of worship the ground she walks on. So she's sort of the North Star for us.
Right. So it's fitting that she's in New York, too. Right. It just like makes a little sense. Yes, she's over there. Yes. In the big leagues. Not that this isn't the big leagues, but right. She's all sophisticated or whatever else.
Exactly.
Okay. That's really cool. So shout out, we were talking about before, but shout out to my daughter who works for the New York Times.
Which is so cool. I'm very impressed.
And she's on the politics desk right now. So it's like, I was telling you before, right, that I'm watching you, and she is living a somewhat similar existence right now.
I'm sure it's crazy. I don't know how people do that for a living, especially campaign reporters on the trail traveling with the candidates.
Right. She's not on the trail like your character. But yes, right. It's so, and what a year. I'm telling her, I'm like, this is wild. You're going to look back in this and you're going to be like, it's weird that I was I was working at the politics desk for the New York Times during the election year.
Yes. During a pretty singular election year. I mean, the last few have been pretty crazy.
That's right. Singular in a different way from the last singular one.
I mean, she's a part of telling history.
Telling history. Mm-hmm. Interesting. And while we're giving her a shout out, I have to give a shout out to two daughters of friends of mine, because they are Supergirl fans. And when they heard that I was going to have you on the show, they flooded me with like 8 million questions to ask you. So shout out to Alex and Sophia.
Were they good questions?
Yeah, they were good questions. So I'm sure they were in our conversation, I'm sure. Mm-hmm. I just don't usually have questions listed out. Right. I'm like, I have bullet points. I want to make sure we get to certain topics, but I like it to be organic and whatnot. So I took all the questions, they went in my brain, and I'm sure something has come out. But I just gave them a shout out. So Alex and Sophia, this is for you.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
We love you, Alex and Sophia.
Oh, they're going to be dying right now. Dying. Okay, so that's great. All right, so the show, we'll see what happens with the show, but all good things, and everybody can watch it on Max.
Yes.
Question about, so you, let's just kind of bring it back to what we started with. So I read some quotes from you that I was intrigued by. One of them was that you were a wallflower growing up. Mm. True?
In some ways. It's sort of in the way that we spoke, that I was always really comfortable playing pretend and playing characters. Yeah. So I think I knew how to branch out when I was doing theater, and I did theater from a really young age. But at school and things like that, I was always really, I felt shy.
Yeah, which is interesting also because, like, for example, and this is why it's acting, your character on Girls on the Bus is like very bubbly, I guess you would say. Mm-hmm. And like you just are she's so comfortable with herself, it seems like. Mm-hmm. And it's so cool that you can bring that out in somebody when maybe you're more shy to begin with.
Sure.
And more self-conscious to begin with.
Yes.
So how do you do that?
I mean, that bubbly, like outgoing, that's in there, you know? I think I'm very much an introverted extrovert. So I know how to unleash my freak flag.
Yes, okay.
But I definitely feel more shy and self-conscious and need like solitude and alone time to like recharge.
Right, because that's what introversion is. It's really that that's how you get you recharge. Doesn't mean that you don't like people.
No.
It just means you need that time to yourself, which is exactly what we were talking about before, when we both like to go to things on our own. Right, because it is that thing, like I need that. And I like when I arrive somewhere, I'm happy to be around people. I love it. So
Me too.
I'm kind of on the fence. I think I've become a little more extroverted with my show. It's just kind of happened naturally, weirdly. But I was quieter for sure before. And more, I mean, I'm still an observer, but now I'm more talkative.
Right.
As you can see right now.
I love that. And that's so good too. For me, I think it definitely was tied with confidence. And I think that was something that I really have only started to sadly gain in my adulthood. So a lot of it for me was, I think I felt shy and guarded because I wasn't confident enough to be that outgoing person.
It's so interesting. Confidence is so complicated too, right? And it's like, what is it based on? But I think everybody also lacks confidence.
Yeah.
Even confident people lack confidence.
Definitely.
Seems like a strange statement, but it's true. So what do you think made you more confident?
I just think the older I get and having a child just made me care less what anyone thought.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly not the first person to say it, but I think you hear a lot of women say that like just time and years and experience, you just end up not caring.
True. And I think more and more, right? So that's something that gets better and better and better, interestingly. Like, again, it's the thing, we can talk about aging. That's just another topic, too. But everybody's so scared of it, especially in Hollywood.
I'm not.
You're not?
No, I'm
not. Okay, let's
I
talk
love
about
getting
that.
older.
Okay, tell me all about it.
I love getting older. I just feel more comfortable in my skin, like we're talking about. I just feel like I have more to give. I love learning. I'm gaining more of a love for learning things and learning about things that I didn't know before, learning new skills, trying new hobbies. Like, I just feel like my hunger and passion for life is getting bigger and my priorities are getting deeper and more meaningful. And I'm not afraid of aging or the way that I look. And a lot of my girlfriends, Carla Gugino included, when they embrace themselves as they get older and you know, I just think there's such beauty in that. So yeah, I'm not afraid of it.
I love that. And I think the more of this that goes on and the more that like you're talking about, the more that people hear that, it's kind of like what we were talking about before too, that like the more that people see this or like positive things and people going through things and having different perspectives, the better it's going to be for everybody.
Agreed.
There's I don't know if you know who Julia Louis-Dreyfus is. You probably
Of course
do.
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
But she has a podcast. It's called Wiser Than Me. And so she interviews women who are like in their 70s or 80s, and she asks them for advice.
That's such a fantastic idea.
It's great. I recommend it. And yes, more of that. Like I think we didn't have as much of this before, and I think we're getting more and more of it. But there are so many wonderful things about getting older, especially with women, and I don't even understand why we're not seeing more women who are older passing on or being like an inspiration. You know?
Yes.
It's just good.
That's so good.
Yeah. So she has all these famous people on. So it's like Jane Fonda and Debbie Allen and like a million really interesting people. Gloria Steinem was on. But they do all have very different things to say and reasons to look forward to later decades.
God, that's so valuable.
Yes.
I was lucky enough to have a woman, my grandma, who I just lost this past year, sadly.
Oh, I'm sorry.
She lived a very long life and was very much a matriarch of our family. And I feel like I had that influence. And she was really open with us about the things she went through in her career, because she was a working woman in a time where a lot of women didn't work.
What did she do?
She was a secretary for a really wealthy man, I think, who was in real estate in Colorado. But, you know, she worked in psychology department in the university in Colorado. She had a lot of experience in a professional environment, and she like had a story where she elbowed a guy in the crotch who was trying to like get handsy with her, and she just like took no shit. And I'm sorry, pardon my French. And having her as an influence was just really invaluable.
Totally. So is it your mom's
My
mom?
mom's mom.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. And you grew up where?
Colorado.
In Colorado. Okay. So she was close by, and she was very much present.
Very
and
present.
All these messages.
Yes. In fact, like she kind of was a source of fear for a lot of us, like me and my cousins, because she was so strong. Really, really strong woman.
So she took no BS.
No. Never.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember interviewing certain people too. I was like, oh yeah, like I remember interviewing Tippi Hedren.
Cool.
And she was like a badass. She was maybe 91 when I interviewed her, and she was telling me how bad Hitchcock was to her.
Yeah, I bet.
But she was just like, no, I'm not taking any of this. And he did threaten to ruin her career, and he kind of did, to be honest. But she still was like, no, I'm gonna. She would elbow him if she could. Maybe she did one day. I don't know. But I was like, I love hearing from women like this.
Yeah.
Marion Ross was another one who I had on from. Do you know Marion Ross? You may be a little too young to know. She was on Happy Days. She played Mrs. Cunningham.
I mean, yes.
Okay.
Because I've seen that show.
Okay, yeah. So she played this like everybody's favorite mom, like a sitcom mom from the 50s or something. But in real life, she was a badass. Like she had a really bad marriage, and her husband was an alcoholic and didn't really do anything. And she had to work and raise the two kids and like work her way through the entertainment industry, which is no easy feat. But she succeeded in such a way. So like, I think we just need more of these stories.
I agree. I need to listen to that podcast.
Yeah. So that's Wiser Than Me with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and it's good.
Wow.
A couple of seasons.
So you're not afraid of aging either.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm not afraid of it. I mean, you're being open and honest with me, so I'll be open and honest with you. Like, I guess it's not afraid of it. Like, for me, I like my age. Like, I'm happy to be my age, but vanity does kick in. And when I'll look in the mirror, I'll look on, in the camera, and I'm like, but this face, like, what is going on here? It's hard to see your face changing because you don't feel that way. So that's a sticky situation. So that is my biggest, it's really my only complaint. My life is getting more and more interesting all the time, I feel like. So I'm not afraid of it in that way. And I want to do everything that I can with it. But it's really only the vanity of it that's hard. Yeah. And it's not going to get easier. So it's like, I know I have to figure this out because this is what I just have to do. One of those podcasts, Debbie Allen was the guest, and she said, and Julia asked her, what advice do you have about aging? Like, are you worried about aging or something like that? And she said, no, I'm not worried about aging. Stop worrying about aging and just go live.
Yeah.
And it was like the best little nugget.
I've seen, have you seen this interview that Maya Angelou gave where she talks about that?
No, but I'm sure she had good things to say too. What do you remember?
She says, I mean, obviously I'm going to paraphrase terribly, but she essentially is like, look, I know that I'm going to die. We all have our expiry date. Yeah. Our expiration date. So why like waste my time doing anything but wonderful things? Yeah. With the time that I have.
Brilliant.
And I'm constantly going to be changing and adapting and becoming different versions of myself, and we just have to be open to all of it.
Yes, that. And that I can tell you, I am constantly becoming a different version of myself, and it's so cool. And I remember there was a certain point in my life, and I think it was when because I was interviewing somebody on my show. It was Jeremy Sisto I remember having on my show. And he was kind of struggling with whatever was going on in his life. And I think he was around 45 or something. And I remember saying to him, my kids were getting a little older, and I felt like I was coming back to myself in a lot of ways. Because like you get into the kid thing, which you're in, and it's wonderful.
You're
it's
giving
amazing.
A lot of yourself for that, for sure.
You are, and so you don't even realize it, but you kind of lose some of you lose touch with some parts of yourself, maybe.
You have to.
Yeah, you have to.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly right.
You have to, because there's literally no time for you to be able to do.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, I wouldn't have done it any other way because it was just a different phase in my life and I loved it and I wouldn't go back and do anything differently. But then there's a time where you start to, or I don't know if it happens for everybody, but where I started to feel like, oh, I feel like I'm more me again in a lot of ways, which is interesting. And then then I keep changing and I'm all for that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Uh-huh.
So, okay. So is there anything that we need to make sure that we get to that people are going to like want to hit me over the head because, oh, you didn't ask her whatever? Like, is there something that people don't realize about you or something that they would be surprised to hear?
I think people would be surprised by how I'm going to use this word and I mean it in a very nice way. By how boring I am. In my life, I'm obviously I'm a mom now, and what you were saying is very true, that like that is my focus for sure, even though I still am very passionate about my career. But like my hobbies are gardening and pottery, and like I have hobbies that are quite like, what's the word for that? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not I think people would be surprised by how
normal?
Yeah.
Normal you are?
Yeah. I guess that's the word.
Because you are, right, a superhero, like we were saying. So, okay, I see what you mean. So you're like a regular, normal person is what you're saying.
Yeah. And I think in my 20s and when I was in the height of doing Supergirl and really like that being my existence, not to like psychoanalyze myself, but I think when I was younger, I put a lot of stock into how my work defined me. And I feel like it was an external validation that I really needed for whatever reason, because I don't know if I was like as comfortable with myself as I feel now. And now like I feel like I've found who I am outside of being an actress, and she is pretty normal and loves gardening and loves making mugs.
Mugs. I need you to make mugs for me. Like I have these really famous mugs that I would have given you today, but I'm having problems with them. I can't seem to order really famous mugs. That's the name of the show, Really Famous, right? Because you're famous, yes. But this is, I want to know who you really are.
I can make you a mug for Really Famous.
I would be very excited about that.
I can do that.
That would be amazing.
It's going to be pretty rustic.
Oh, I don't mind.
Okay, good.
Okay, deal. Perfect. So let me close with a couple of kind of basic, well, they're not so basic, of personal questions of what are you still working on? Because we're talking about so much about how you keep evolving, and we're both evolving, which is a beautiful thing. So like, what is one of the things you're like, I'm still working on this?
I think I will always be working on my patience, as much as I say to you, like having trust in the process and optimism that things will work out. I think I do worry more than I would like to, that about things if they don't go my way, or especially in parenting. Like patience is a very big ongoing process for me to get better at.
So like what's an example of it? Like you feel like do you like have a limit that you want to be where you get aggravated, or?
Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. I think I reach, and I won't say like a boiling point, but I reach like frustration quicker than I feel like I want to, about like a situation where I want it to go my way or something. Patience and being present. Those are the things that I feel like I'm still working on. Okay. And always will be, I feel like. Yeah,
so those are things that are things to work on over a lifetime, really, which is totally fine. And how would I'm thinking about your mom. How would your mom describe you?
She actually, it's very sweet, and she has like sort of soundtracks for each of us, and I'll answer your question by telling you that one of the songs that she always told me reminded her of me when I was younger was Suddenly I See by Katie Tunstall. Do you know that song? Suddenly I see.
Oh, yeah, of course.
This is what I want to be. So that one was, if you've heard that song, that is, I think, how my mom would describe me.
Okay, I love
From
that.
her eyes.
Okay, and how would Chris describe you?
I think he would probably describe me as like a weirdo. We are totally each other's brand of weird, and I think he would describe me as caring and loving and passionate, yes, but also like really silly and strange.
Okay, perfect. And then the hardest question is, how would you describe yourself?
That is really hard. I would describe myself as and I don't even know. How do you describe yourself? That's so hard.
So somebody flipped it on me once, and I did realize how hard it was. And so, because I used to ask the question of like, okay, 2-part question, who do people think you are? And then who are you really? So that's how I used to phrase it. And it's interesting because I actually kind of stole the question from Barbara Walters. Do you know who she was?
Yes. Baba Wawa.
Yeah, exactly. So she, right. So she had this question at the end of a lot of her interviews, which was, so I would say to you, and you have to tell me for sure, I think you pronounce it Benoist, right?
Benoist.
Benoist.
It should be Benoit.
Wait, but I saw a clip of you on Jimmy Kimmel, and I thought that's what you said. Okay, so I have to read you that then. So Benoist is what you say.
Mm-hmm.
But it's French.
Yes.
So it would be Benoit.
Benoit with silent S or T. It's usually Benoit.
Right. But where did the S come in? Do you know?
I don't know. Probably when my family immigrated.
Oh, so
landed
your family, they're from France?
My dad's side, yes.
Okay. All right. So, getting back to what I was saying. So Barbara Walters would ask you, who is Melissa Benoist?
And I would say someone who is trying to be a lifelong learner, an observer, who is interested and curious about the world, and I'm a very passionate person. I am a person who feels incredibly deeply, and a lot of times that gets in my way, but I think it's one of my greatest assets. And an optimist.
See, I think you did really well with that.
Really?
Yeah.
Great.
And I feel like I would answer it in a very similar way for myself with the types of descriptors. You know, like people can answer it differently. So somebody might say, oh, well, I am an actor and a mom and you know what I mean? Like they'll do more of roles. And then somebody will be more descriptive. And that's how I would describe myself too. Like you asked me to do it, how you do it. So I'm putting myself on
please. I would love to hear.
Okay, fine. So if you insist. All right. So I think I'm a woman who's always changing and always evolving and who has been through so many different phases and learned so many different things along the way. And I've been lucky to be in all these different situations. And I am somebody who's always interested in variety and change. Like I get bored if it's the same thing over and over again. So I can't possibly have like one of those very stable lives where you just have one job and you live in the same house forever and you know you do the same thing every weekend, or I just couldn't do it. So I like variety and connection. I'm learning more and more as I get older that human connection to me is the greatest thing of all.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
I love it.
I think that makes for a long life.
I do too. And I think there are studies that support that.
Yeah, blue zones.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that's right. That is a huge,
not just diet.
What's one of the, what are there 9? Are there 9 factors or something in the blue zones? And that's one of them. So I'm all in on that. Okay, cool. So
that was a great answer.
Thank you. And I think, right, I was listening to yours. I'm like, yeah, this is exactly the kind of thing that I would be, you know, seeing myself as in those ways. All right. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks. You did make me feel really comfortable and calm.
Oh, good. That is what I always hope to. Like, the last thing I want to do is make you uncomfortable. Like, I'm hosting you. Like, I want you to have a good time.
Yeah, I felt
Or
that.
feel good. Okay, good. So did I.
Hi, I'm Melissa Benoist. I just talked to Kara on Really Famous. We just had a great conversation. I really feel like it was a safe space to talk about all things.